Hi, my name is Margaret and welcome to my artsy corner of the internet. So I learned Jimin's Black Swan Solo and you can check out the video wherever the little I button is. But yeah, so I ended up learning Jimin Solo and welcome to our workout room / garage. That is a tightrope back there. Just don't question it, it's fine. We're gonna start with coffee. I feel like that's a very good place to start. Oh, he goes so fast. It's amazing how long 37 seconds feels like. Okay, now we're gonna bump it down to like 0.5 speed. Here, slight twist, up. Pump in, right, left. Oh, I'm learning it to the wrong side. Oops. Oh. Oh, let's see how it is. Oh. I think I'm still thinking a lot about like the sequence and stuff, but the two things that I noticed straight off, right out the back, right off the back, right out the gate, right out the bat, right up the bat. I don't actually know what that saying is. The two things I noticed, one of them is that I think when I reacted to this solo, I was kind of talking about how sometimes you have to like mark a combination, and sometimes when you like mark it, it actually looks better than when you're going full out. And I think there are a couple moments, mostly after the turn, when he steps forward down. That one, I'm just like, I think I'm just over dancing it. And so his is like very like cool, and mine is like, ah! So I think I need to chill that out a little bit. And so maybe marking through it will kind of help me like find the cool, and kind of sitting on like the back of the beat instead of being like, I need to be on the beat. The other thing that I noticed was the first half of the piece, like the first 20 seconds took me a lot longer to learn than the second half. And I think that's because there's so much of his personal style infused in the first half. Trying to learn the very first move and how he does that is almost more difficult because in theory it's just this, but he puts so much personality in it that I was like, wait, what exactly is he doing to make it look like that? And then same with like his coming forward, his little jump, but by the end you're getting to like the more big moves. So like when you roll on the ground into like the bridge and the big passe guy, the little illusion, the flying squirrel. Oh, I forgot the flying squirrel when I did it last time. Oops. When you do all of those tricks, they're things that I've done before. They're more like codified dance steps. I've seen those before. And so it's easier to pick up choreography when you've seen those movements before, where the very beginning stuff is much more his own style. So I found that the first half took me like 45 minutes to learn, and then I was able to learn the second half in like 15. That's what I've learned so far from learning this piece. I did the thing in my reaction video. I talked about how sometimes it's good to like mark a dance. That way you can find like new expressions that you don't usually find when you're doing it full out.
And I also talked about how sometimes you have to do it once when you're just like fully exhausted to find new textures. So I did it 9 times and I was like, you know what? We're just gonna try to like mark it / like find what it feels like to do it when you're exhausted. And I think I proved myself right because I think the last time was the best.
Originally, when I was actually learning the solo, I found like a mirrored version of it on YouTube. Surprisingly enough, when I was kind of in my bedroom just like learning the choreography, it was actually a lot easier for me to learn on a non-mirrored video, which is weird because I found a mirrored video of it because I was like, that's probably going to be easier to learn than like reversing it. I think it's because the behind the scenes was shot at an angle, it was actually easier for me to just like learn it from like the normal video. So yeah, I accidentally learned it on the wrong side first, and then, well, like the first half of the solo, I learned going the wrong way. So then I had to flip everything and relearn the first half of the solo, which was mind-melting, but I did it. I do have to say, learning off a video is weird. I usually don't learn off a video. I learn like in class from an instructor in the same room, and it's very different learning from a video. So yeah, I found that I like to kind of build, I don't know if this is gonna make sense, but like I like to build the movement horizontally instead of vertically. Let me explain what this means. So I feel like I went through and like I learned the whole minute of choreography, like very like bare bones, like just the general idea of where my weight was and what the movement kind of looked like. And then I went through and looked for like specific arm movements, and then I went through and learned specific leg placements for like the whole piece. So I was kind of like building it up like this until I got a full piece. Whereas I feel like another way to do it is like build, like you perfect the first step and you know exactly where your arms are, where your legs are, where your head is, and the quality, and then you move on to the next step and build it more like that. It's like you're getting everything for each step, where I like to get the baseline of everything and then build all the steps together. Does that make sense? But I should also talk about a little bit like the parts that were more difficult in the solo and the parts that were easier. I find that the beginning steps of a dance are always the hardest to learn because you're kind of stepping into somebody else's body. And especially I had just watched the solo like that week and I'm not familiar. I've never done like BTS dance before, so I don't really have like their style in my body. So stepping into somebody else's movement quality is pretty difficult. And so it took me a really long time just to even get these first few clicks so they looked remotely the same. It wasn't necessarily like steps that I was used to. And so finding his groove and his style was probably the most difficult part. As soon as we kind of got into like the going to the floor and the bridge and the big passe thing and the leaps and the illusions and stuff, all that got easier just because I've done those steps before. So it wasn't really like I was trying to figure out how to do a leap, because I do leap every day. I do leaps every day in class, and so adding one of those into dance isn't that difficult, but it's like the minute hand things that make it more difficult. That's another thing. I think for a lot of the takes, I was really trying to stay very, very true to exactly how Jimin did it, or like try to embody as much as possible how he did it. And then the last take, I was like, I'm just gonna do it how I want to do it. And so that was also kind of fun for me to watch back and see how I do it the way I want to do it and how I do it the way that I think Jimin does it. So when I was doing both of those prompts, I had different choices that I made throughout the combination. I think there were definitely a couple moments in both of them that I liked better. So actually in the official video that I put out, I actually edited 2 of those clips together because I thought some of them when I was making like my own decisions I liked better, and then some of them when I was following Jimin's I liked a lot better. Like this little snap when I was trying to embody him looks so much better because I actually like hit his same tension points. And where I was doing it more in my own familiar style, I really like moving through and being very, very flowy. My body does not naturally just like go sharp. So I missed, I think, a couple of those punctuation marks, which kind of chop up the dance nicely.
because sometimes when you're just flowing through everything, it can kind of become monotone because everything's just like this. So sometimes when you have a boom and then you stop and then it goes and it stops and it goes, I think those little moments of punctuation I missed. So I think if I were to do it again, I'd probably fuse those two different options and those different choices together without using editing and just try to do it like actually. Sometimes you just don't have time to do that though, so you can fix it in post-production. Another thing that I think was a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning was the coordination. And I found this and embodied it a little bit more when I was actually learning it. But Jimin's fusion of more hip-hop, K-pop style of dancing with a more contemporary background. He has a very interesting coordination because of his two different backgrounds. So he clearly has contemporary training in his lineage, but he also has obviously been doing more hip-hop styles in like the more current day. He's not constantly doing contemporary dancing now, and so I think you can kind of see that in some of his coordinations, just like where he likes to shift his weight. And one example of this is he has a lot of wind-ups. So before almost all of the turns, a couple of the jumps, and like, yeah, mostly the first turn and then the last jump, he does this like almost like back cracking action before he goes into it. And that's not something that you see in like more classical forms of ballet and contemporary, but it is a little bit more common in more hip-hop style to be moving this way, contrast it, and then continue moving that way. Again, it's like a little like hiccup in the flow, which makes it a little bit more interesting for the audience and visually. There's also some really interesting pauses and timing that he has. So I actually messed this up. I'm gonna out myself. I actually did not learn this with music. The first time I ever actually did it with music was when I started filming. I don't know why, I was just like, I don't need music. I gave myself a couple musical cues when I got into the studio. Like I knew which point he was on the ground doing the bridge, and I knew which point he was like at like the passe and something like that. And luckily for me, most of the dance was very clearly to the music, which I think makes sense because Jimin helped to make the song. He's a part of the song, so he understands the music very internally, and so when he's choreographing to it, he really embodied the music. And so for that reason, it didn't really matter that I had never practiced with music because it just went very naturally with the flow of the rhythm. And sometimes in more like concert contemporary arts, you butt up against the rhythm. So like you might be doing a dance to a waltz, and then the choreographer purposely puts it in like a 4/4 time signature instead of like a 6/8. That's just to annoy you as a dancer, I guess. No, but sometimes there is a reason when you want to like juxtapose the music and create that dissonance between what the audience is hearing and what they're seeing. But that makes it really difficult as a dancer because you can't have the music help move you. So if you like forget a move, the music isn't there to remind you. You have to fight against it. And so doing it with the music felt very natural because he didn't do that. He very much made the dance go with the music. And so if there was ever a moment of like stumbling or forgetting what came next, the music was there to remind you. And it fit in very nicely. Just like sometimes you'll hear dancers say like in the pocket of the music, meaning like you're really just like riding like with the groove and with the rhythm. And so that was something that was really helpful when doing it with the music because I didn't really have to think too much about timing. That being said, I didn't do the timing right. I was able to sit in the rhythm of the music, but there were certain pauses that Jimin took that I didn't because I was very much riding the beat. And he had a couple moments of like extremely casual posture, I would say. And specifically, I'm thinking of right before the turn. He kind of sits into both of his hips, winds up, and then goes. And then after that turn, after the turn. Did I just say before? Anyway, after the turn, he like sits and it's like very casual for a half second before he goes into this huge like chest opening to the ceiling. And for me, I just completely skipped over that. And it wasn't even until after I had filmed it that I was like, did I miss a part? And it's very interesting because it's like I was watching and I was like, it's not even really a step. It's just like a very casual posture added in there. And it changed the timing for that section and made the beginning more prolonged, and then this was a little bit quicker. And I think it's just really interesting because that's not something that you see in like a more traditional technique.
And I think it's like that little bit of flair that he's picked up in everything that he's done after his contemporary training, and is now a really interesting fusion of the two. I think that's all I have to say on that. So now I'm just gonna go through and kind of critique my own performance. So I have the first time I did it, and then I have the second time, 10th time, I don't know. So this is the first time I ever attempted this in the studio. I might have marked through it or did it once before this, but this was like the first time I filmed it in the studio. I started out with bare feet because I was like, Jimin's in bare feet, let's do this barefooted. And then I realized that there's a bunch of slides on the ground, and he was in pants, so he could slide on like his knee or his shin. I was in shorts, and so I just kind of stuck on the ground. So I was like, I'm gonna wear socks. And then that way I could slide on the top of my foot and keep my like bare skin off the ground. So yeah, I got a couple rug burns and a blister, and then I was like, we're gonna put on socks. So in the reaction that I did to Jimin's solo, I ended up talking about how I wanted to see like the first time he ran it versus the last time, because I think exhaustion is an interesting, like, I don't want to say tool, but like tool in dance to see a different quality come out when you're performing. So this is the first time I did it, and I definitely think that I hit the initial beats and the sharp accents harder than the first time I ever did it. Even from the very beginning, when I'm kind of coming up, these are a lot stronger on my first time. And yeah, I do also, the first like little weight shift, I mean, I'm a woman, I got big burthen hips, and I like to use them. And so I definitely sank a little deep into my hips. It made the beginning a little bit sassier than the original, but hey, you know, we all have our quirks. I think while I hit the accents a lot harder and more precise the first time I ran it, I also think I overdanced it. So it's always finding like that fine balance between hitting the accents and going hard when you need to, and then also knowing when to like let up. And I love hitting things hard and going like full out. And so especially when I'm not doing so much of like a contemporary style where you're actually trying to hit everything, but doing more of like this relaxed, chill, groovy kind of, I don't want to say it's like a totally different style, but like when that more like groovy style is added into contemporary, I really have to learn how to like let up on the gas a little bit and kind of like chill out. I also think in this one it's a little bit choppier. Again, it was like the first time I was kind of working on this, and it was the first time I was in the studio running it like full out with music and the camera going. And so you can kind of tell where I'm like, what comes next? And then I do it. And so I think by like the last run, I definitely got into the flow of, I know what's happening, I know what's happening next, I know what quality I need. And so everything kind of flowed together better by the end. So this one, I am hitting things harder, I'm hitting the accents harder, but I'm also chopping up all of the movement. And in the last one, I'm very much like stringing it all together and being very flowy, but I kind of missed some of those crucial accents. So it's all about balance and moderation. Namaste. I think that those are the main points I'd say about that first run through. So now this is the last time that I performed it, and just kind of see like the qualitative difference. You can definitely see that I'm not hitting the accents as hard, but I do think that the overall quality is a little bit nicer. And I'm also not over dancing as much just because I'm tired, so I'm finding ways to conserve energy. And so I think that there's a lot more like flinging action instead of like hitting action. So like a hitting is like and then you grab it at the end. So there's a lot of energy, where flinging is more just like you let it kind of happen. And so I think here I'm much more flinging because it takes a lot less energy. And at the beginning I was doing a lot more of the hitting and then releasing. And I think hitting and releasing is more what was needed for the accents. But I also think that the fling looks really nice for some of these as well. I do definitely think that I could have given myself like a little bit more whiplash, especially with my head. I just noticed it at the, which one was it? At the end of the turn, I was definitely doing a little bit more like modern contraction into release. And as I watched back Jimin's original solo, it's a little bit more fling of the head and the arms. So I think that could have been a little bit more out of control, where it was a little in control in this performance.
And then there you can really see this thing, I did not hit it at all. It was very much like move through, which is a choice, but I think the more accented one worked better. I really like when I go down, I kind of leave my head here, and so then when my body goes, it's the last thing to snap at the end, which I think adds it's like a similar quality of like releasing, but it's like a nice whip at the end. I like that moment. I also think my rolls backwards could have been a little bit more chaotic. This line kind of annoyed me because I realized that I was really, this passe line, because I was really twisting my hip, where Jimin's was much more like straight on, so you really got like this side of the body. I kind of brought my hips forward, so my leg was more like in front of my chest, where Jimin's was more this line. This part made me laugh so hard when I rewatched it. I don't know, like, why I was just, prime example of like just over dancing something. Jimin's was like very like chill, and I just got into it and I was like, ha, 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 like at like a heavy metal concert. It's kind of very funny. But yeah, I actually found that like groove into the illusion was harder than the illusion, because I've done illusions before, but like, man, it just makes me laugh. I don't know. I also think coming out of that illusion, there needed to be another hit before the rebound. Honestly, I think that last was actually pretty good. When I was rehearsing it, I was like, that looks so bad, because I wasn't like getting it. But I think actually in the final, that little jolt and punctuation actually looked pretty good. I'm not like a trained popper. I've tried. I wish I could pop. Anyway, I can't actually pop, but I can fake pop in moments like that. And so if you aren't a trained popper, but you want to hit an accent that's like somewhat close, I just always use my breath. So I'm always like, and I just like exhale really quickly. And that can kind of help get that same feeling of jolting. Let's just get through this so that the power saw doesn't interrupt us again. I kind of fell out of the flying squirrel. Honestly, I fell out of the leap. I fell out of the flying squirrel. The whole ending was just me kind of falling all over the place. And again, it's authentic because it's exhaustion. I just want to show you the ending of the first time I did it and the ending of the second time that I did it. Because the first time I was like, okay, after the flying squirrel, we get back up and then I'll just go back down to the floor and it'll be like the exhaustion and collapse part. But I wasn't exhausted. I was like very fresh. This was like my imitation of collapsing on the floor. And then I want to show you what it actually looked like the last time. The last time I did this was very much like I was gonna stop with the take beforehand, and I was like, no, let's just do it one more time when I'm completely dead tired and see what it looks like. And this one, I actually just fell out of the flying squirrel and just collapsed because I like literally was falling. Just like a little side-by-side comparison of like what imitation versus exhaustion looks like. So just here's a little comparison of like what imitation of exhaustion looks like and what actual like exhaustion and falling looks like, and just the kind of so you get the idea of like how exhaustion is used as a tool sometimes. I think that's pretty much all I have to say. If you have any other questions about like learning the piece or anything you're wondering, let me know. Yeah, and let me know if you guys like this of me learning a piece and then me explaining what I learned from doing it. I don't know, I think it's kind of fun. May I implore you to maybe perhaps like, comment, and subscribe, because that would be cool. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.